like they describe a bottom as when the last thing you lost or the next thing you're about to lose is worth more than the drink or the drugs. And I had several bottoms. With heroin, it was my job. Like, I was about to lose my job, and that was enough to, like, make me try to not do it. With alcohol, I had completely lost my dignity.
This is the I Am Redemption podcast, and today I have a very good friend of mine. We've been friends since 2017, right? 2017, we were just talking about it. Not only is she one of the most badass tattoo artists that I have ever seen, she's one of the most beautiful people I know inside and out. Tank Girl. She is a tattoo legend in Austin, and it's a delight to have you today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone just calls me Tank. I don't like going by my legal name. So
Government name?
My government name, no.
You should be able to pick your own, right?
Right.
Right.
Some people do.
You could legally change it, too.
I could. I feel like that would be a hassle.
So we know each other from the recovery community. That's how we first got in touch and got to know each other a little bit. Where did it all start for you? What brought you to this point right here today?
Wow. It's a loaded question. I love it. So I'm from Miami, Florida. I started tattooing in Miami, and like some of the tattoo artist legends in Miami were like prolific heroin addicts. So it was kind of the ideal, right? Like, you get into tattooing, you drink, you do a bunch of drugs, you party, sex, everything was always wild. And that was what I came up in. And
did I tell you that I used to live in Miami?
No.
That's what I first did. That's where I first got hooked on heroin.
God damn it. Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was everywhere, especially because I started with like pills. That was Pill Mill City when I got onto opiates. But it was 2011, I think, when I started like using more opiate and like downers and figured out how to like actually stomach alcohol, and really developed a big problem with that. When I was a kid, it was like cocaine and smoking weed and sex and all the other things that were accessible. But the problem really started, what led me here was opiates. I got married to a man who was a heroin addict. He was trying to not use heroin, but was open about using pills. He was using heroin, and I didn't actually find that out until like after we separated.
How old were you at this time?
I was 21, I think. Yeah, I was 21 when I met him. 22 when we married, and we moved here in 2013. So I was 23, or I was about to turn 23. Turned 23 the week after we moved here. And we were escaping our addiction, which never works, right? Like, anywhere I go, there I am. And we were both tattoo artists, right? So, like, we took turns applying at shops when we moved here. I went first. The first shop that popped up was True Blue Tattoo. So I sent my portfolio. I called them. I talked to someone. And like, there's a lot of synchronicities that like led me to this moment. And it all starts from that marriage and moving here with that man. We had like a savings enough to like get an apartment, get on our feet here. We got here, we put a deposit down, and we got denied on an apartment. Because we were fabulous junkies, we never got legally married. We got married on Halloween. We had a ceremony, but we realized that you were supposed to like register beforehand. So we were like, we'll do it next year. And by next year we were here, applied on an apartment, got denied. They took our deposit. It was like in the cyberspace for like 2 weeks. So there goes all of our money, our like means to live and survive. So we went to a bar, met some people, found some people to tattoo, found someone to crash with. The person we stayed with was a social cyclist. So he was like, let's go to this bike-in movie. There's a tattoo shop on the way. We'll stop by. And it turned out to be True Blue. And so I went up and talked to the artists there. And it was two guys, Curtains and Mike. Neither of them work for True Blue anymore. But my husband, for some reason, took my portfolio out of the car, which made no sense. So I just had my cell phone. So I was like, I think that got me some points because I was like really close to them, like showing them my, Instagram. And I found out that Curtains was expecting a child, and they had decided on a name.
Who's Curtains?
Curtains was one of the guys who worked there.
Okay.
I know funny tattoo names: Tank, Curtains, like.
Does everybody have that? Or
Sort of. A lot of people do, yeah. My apprentice is trying to use Worm as a nickname. We'll see if that sticks, but I don't like it. It's hard. I've known them as Liv for a long time.
She's your apprentice, so you should give her the nickname, right?
They, them are their pronouns.
Sorry.
It's fine. And I don't know. I call them Bean, but that's a term of endearment. I don't think that's a tattoo nickname.
All right.
So when I was talking to Curtains, we found out that he was expecting a child. And they had decided on a name. And the name was Levi. And Levi is my ex-husband's name, which there was some synchronicity in that. That was like August 13th that I was at the shop talking to them. August 21st was my birthday, and baby Levi was born on my birthday.
Wow.
And then I got hired on at True Blue. And that shop is ultimately what like saved my life. I struggled with addiction. I didn't stay sober here. I got off the pills, but drank a lot and made a mess. And ultimately, we had a violent separation. There was abuse in our relationship, and he got arrested because we weren't legally married. And the way that Austin is set up, there is, if a domestic altercation happens in the household, you get an immediate temporary protect order. So for 30 days, they're not welcome back in the house if you choose to enforce it. And you can immediately get a 2-year protect order. Everything's covered by the government. Everything's paid for. It's super easy. So I did that. And then I started using heroin. And it was a nightmare for a couple of years. My next partner actually passed away from an overdose. And then I got called out by the owner of the shop. And he was like, actually, Curtin sat me down. And he was like, what's up with you? And I was like, I'm addicted to heroin. I just like didn't deny it. And he was like, well, the owner's going to call you in and talk to you on Monday. And I'm like, okay. And when he called me in, he's like, what's up with you? I told him the truth. I'm addicted to heroin. He was like, well, you got to stop that. And, you know,
I'll get right on that.
Right. Yeah. But he was not unfamiliar with like addiction and alcohol abuse and substance abuse. And so he was like, his suggestion, because he has lost a significant other in his life, and he's just like, drink. Call me and I'll drink over the phone with you, but just stop doing heroin. You got to stop. And I was like, bet. And I stopped. That was not entirely in my own power. I didn't drive when I was too fucked up to ever get a driver's license, and that was a blessing in disguise. So, like, the only dope man that I had that would deliver stopped answering me. So there's, like, 3 times in, like, a year of drinking myself blind that I tried to get heroin, and I failed because he didn't answer. And I, you know, like, they describe a bottom as when the last thing you lost or the next thing you're about to lose is worth more than the drink or the drugs. And I had several bottoms. With heroin, it was my job. Like, I was about to lose my job, and that was enough to, like, make me try to not do it. With alcohol, I had completely lost my dignity. I was a blackout drunk. I have so many nights that I pieced together and played detective to figure out what the fuck happened. And the last night that I drank, I got kicked out of a bar that nobody gets kicked out of. When I tell people I got kicked out of that bar, they're like, what did you do? And I have no idea. I still have no idea to this day.
Really?
I woke up the next day. My roommate's partner put a beer on my nightstand, breakfast beer we called it, and I didn't open it. And one of the clients that I knew was getting tattooed at the shop was a well-known recovered addict. She was on America's Next Top Model, Intervention on Dr. Phil. She got a beautiful tattoo started from one of my coworkers. All good junkies go to heaven, across her chest. And I asked my coworker when I went in that day, I said, when is she coming in next? And she was coming in that Wednesday. And that Wednesday I was there and I was like, I need help. And she was like, bet, come to this meeting on Friday. I'm telling my story. Come, I'll hook you up. I went to that meeting, and I went to that meeting every Friday again after that. For years. And
no treatment,
no detox. I was very lucky that like the way that I like tried to manage and diet my disease, I didn't have physical withdrawals that were substantial enough to need medical intervention. Because I tried everything, right? I tried like, oh, I'll just drink beer. Oh, I'll just drink wine. Oh, I'll just drink on the weekends. Oh, I'll just, I'll take a week to dry out. Oh, like I won't drink at home. But no matter what, I always ended up blacked out on a bar stool again, and around the corner from calling the dope man.
Right. So alcohol was your gateway?
I think alcohol is the reason I got sober. But at the very, very beginning, it was like cocaine. That was the thing that started everything.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think that the path that led me here, it started as a tattoo artist. I think that's like where everything really got to be like, this is the life that I'm choosing and this is what I have to do. Right. And I think after getting sober and, finding a program and talking to people for a living, because like, yeah, I tattoo people, but like I talk to people. Right. And anyone who's ever been tattooed by me, you haven't yet, but anyone who ever gets tattooed by me, we talk the whole time. And like people will come and sit down and just immediately tell me like the most fucked up things in their life. And I guess like I give this energy that people feel safe to do that. And I think tattooing being the gateway to becoming an addict was also the way that I became sober. Mm-hmm. And it's my medicine still today.
Right, for sure. I know exactly what you're saying because as a trainer, I end up being almost like an unlicensed therapist for people because they'll immediately just start telling me, everything like that. And it's not even like I'm prompting or prodding them to, but once you have a little bit of rapport with somebody, they look forward to coming in and talking about that stuff. And then they know they're talking to somebody with some sense who's been there.
Yeah.
Do you think tattooing is kind of, and this might be an uneducated assessment, but do you think tattooing is kind of like the music, like people that are in bands? Like it seems we've had people on that are in bands and they talk about how easy and accessible it is being on the road, everybody's partying, that's just the culture. But just like you're saying, they said that the music in one way and all that was their downfall, ended up the people I've had on here being their salvation too. And so that's it seems similar in a sense.
I think so. Probably with like music, like I just went to Colorado and saw a band perform, and like I saw him last month too. I'm a big fan, Amigo the Devil, and you can see him, and he's another one of us, right? He's a normie in so many words, but like he's got a lot of songs about coming off of heroin, and like you can see him step back, and the entire crowd knows his songs and can sing his songs, and he'll be like, just you and me, and all the instruments stop, and he steps back from the mic so he's not in the mic, and we're all just singing, and like his face is just like, I can't believe that I'm connecting with these people. It makes me emotional.
You give me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And like I feel that way in a very small sense with tattooing, and like when I step back and look at like the community of people that I have left a mark on, literally and figuratively, it's medicine, it's healing. And like I think it's a way to escape from myself. It was a mask that I could put on for a long time. I'm this tattoo artist, I'm this badass, I'm above you, I'm different, and now it's a thing that like allows me to level with people. And I imagine it's just the same with musicians.
Right. For sure. At what point in your life did you realize that you were that you wanted to be a tattoo artist, or what was the first thing that like piqued your interest in that field?
Funnily enough, I never thought I'd be a tattoo artist.
Is that a word?
I guess. Funny enough? I don't know. Funnily. I never thought I would tattoo. When I was 16 and I first started doing cocaine, I was in a relationship with someone who was 18 and was a piercer, and he wanted to tattoo, but he couldn't draw. And I was so passionate about the fact that like you should not be a tattoo artist. You can't draw. That is the problem with tattooing. Too many people can't draw, and they're doing tattoos, and they're doing bad tattoos. I had this idea in my mind that you had to be like Da Vinci to do tattoos, or you were just going to be an asshole.
Shouldn't you be?
No.
You be really good at drawing?
No.
Really?
Right. So this is what I learned during my apprenticeship. I started my apprenticeship as a piercer. I was 17 and a tattoo shop opened like on my walk to high school. And I went in, it was like, I want to learn to pierce. And they were like, bet, how old are you? I'm like 17. And like, that's fine. We'll teach you. So basically I cleaned the shop. I learned like sanitation and like the basics of piercing. And I watched these two artists who owned the shop. They were really good fine artists. They did beautiful paintings. They did art installations. They did stuff in galleries, right? I watched them do not good tattoos on people. And the shop was a new shop. It had opened with like a sister shop that helped them get ground. But there was no business. So by the time I was allowed to pierce, there was no money to be made. I wasn't doing anything. I was a smart student, so I had a 75% scholarship to Florida schools. So I just went to community college, like, let me figure out what I'm going to do with my life.
Right.
And I quit. And on my 19th birthday, I went to the sister shop to get tattooed. And I got this little tattoo behind my ear. It's 46 and 2. It's a tool tattoo. And I got offered my job back as a piercer. And this was an established shop. There was business. I would have been able to make money. I was a waitress. I was in college, like 1 or 2 classes a semester. And I was like, fuck yes. And so I took that job. I made a little bit of money. And there were 2 apprentices. It was a couple learning to tattoo. They weren't doing shit. They were just there hanging out, like fucking around, smoking weed. And the owner of that shop, I watched him do really good tattoos with really clean lines, solid colors, soft shading, and he couldn't draw. Really? And it blew my mind. I was like, wait a second, this is possible. And watching those apprentices not do shit, by the time they quit, I was like, I want to learn to tattoo. And he didn't sit with me, didn't really teach me much. I was given like a sheet of flash that the young tattoo artist that worked there, he had been tattooing for like 5 months. He had a 5-year apprenticeship elsewhere, came there. They were like, you can tattoo. He drew a sheet of flash and I traced it all day, every day, on the bus, at work, during my break at work. Like anytime I could, I was tracing. And then I went in one day and they're like, you're going to tattoo your best friend. And she was like already there. And I was like, I haven't even practiced color. And I was freaking out and I did the tattoo and I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. I love this. I'm gonna do it. And I spent all of my time like recreating, tracing, coloring all of the flash pieces. Mm-hmm. There's this one artist, Mike Belzell. He's got a famous flash set. They're envelopes because he spent a lot of time in prison. Mm-hmm. And he would draw on all the envelopes he sent out to all these people. And his now ex-wife kept all of the envelopes and published a flash set from them. And so I like traced and colored and tried to figure out like how to draw all of those pieces. And it turns out I can draw and I could draw better than the owner of that shop. I just didn't know. I never tried. I didn't trust my ability. And I need a prompt. Like when I sit there with like blank paper and my own brain, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. But when someone's like, I want this thing with, you know, like I want Persephone, but make her pink and have a doe skull and have these sort of dead animals in the bottom. And I can fucking do a really good drawing. Like, I just didn't know.
That's what gets your creative juices flowing?
Yeah, I just need a prompt. I need an assignment. Someone gives me an assignment, I'm like, I can do this.
So what would you say that your like tattoo style is?
I don't think I have a particular style. I can say for sure that I don't do like traditional American or Japanese or traditional tribal work. I do some really interesting, bright, colorful, new school, goofy animal tattoos. I do a lot of florals. I do some black and gray realism. I don't do portraits, but like for the most part, I can take on most projects someone brings to me. Geometric stuff, really abstract work. I think one of the reasons that I am so blessed and busy as an artist is because of the like wide range of styles that I'm capable of doing. Yeah, I'm not pigeonholed into a style.
Well, your work is next level, and whenever anybody even brings up the word tattoo, I always throw your name in there. Once you did, shout out to our homie Nina. Once you did Nina's Phoenix, I was sold. The big, beautiful yellows and oranges, draping reds, draping down her back and stuff like that. Next level.
So long ago.
We were just talking about the octopus one you've done recently with the purples and blues and everything like that. It's next level.
Thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of really cool stuff. I get weird projects and impossible projects. People will come to me with like a thing that other artists have turned them down for. I'm like, I'll do that. Like, we'll figure it out. I got you. Whether it's like ridiculous, like complicated line work on a throat or like cover-ups that are supposed to be uncover-upable, like, I'll figure it out.
Really? I got a couple of those.
I'm a big fan of that. I feel like I can cover anything. Yeah. Okay. You just gotta be open-minded.
Right. Mm-hmm. What is the craziest tattoo you think you've ever done?
Crazy is in the eye of the beholder is my usual answer to that. Currently, the tentacles that I'm working on, they come out of someone's butt hole. So
wait a minute. Hold on. I was gonna breeze over this. Go ahead. Let's say it again.
The tentacles that I'm working on, they come out of a girl's butthole. So
it's not finished yet.
No,
I've only seen it come down her back.
Yeah, they start right now where they're at currently. It goes from like butt cheeks to up to low back, down to the back of the calf. But they're gonna like go into the crack.
Butthole.
Yeah.
Have you tattooed a butthole before?
I assisted on a butthole. It's a 2-person job. You need someone to spread, and then you need the person to tattoo. So I have been the butthole spotter, the spreader.
Okay, male or female?
Male.
Do you have a preference?
Which would it be? I don't think so. I don't think it matters at that point. It's the same very vulnerable position.
Bonded for life.
Yeah. Yep. They're in there.
What's coming out? Oh.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, not to the butthole yet, but it will be.
Are you gonna do an Instagram post when it is?
I can't.
No?
No, that one was hard enough. I had to like add an extra little bit to edit it. It's really hard to not have
who knows what they'll strike down.
Things on Instagram that are shameful.
What's the craziest tattoo shop story you got? Had to see some
tattoo shop.
Had to see some shit.
Okay, this goes back to Florida. It was the shop I was working at when I met my ex-husband. There's so many stories. The debauchery working on Fort Lauderdale Beach in Florida. And it was especially due to one of my coworkers, Mercy. She was my maid of honor. She is my like ride or die bitch. I love her. She's the kind of person that could talk to anybody about anything. You'd be sitting there cracking up in this little room. It was like a tiny room. It was the size of this space. Two stations. 2 artists could tattoo at once. She could talk to like an 86-year-old woman about eating ass. I swear to God. I don't know how she did it, but she could do it. And all of my crazy stories ultimately come from that time, but probably one of the best is for a small period of time, we had a ritual that we would people that was their first tattoo would get spanked. And we had a counterhelp person, this like lipstick lesbian, Sandra. She always wore like skinny jeans and stilettos and bright red lipstick and had short hair and always had a belt on. And so many people were like, hell yeah, you can spank me. So this person was there. I think it was this couple's son. It was his first tattoo and he got spanked. And then this like older couple that were getting tattooed were like, it was a guy. He's like, this is my first tattoo. I want to get spanked. And so he's like in his 60s maybe. And so he bent over the table and got spanked. And then his wife was like, I want to get spanked. So we just gave him the belt and he spanked his wife in the tattoo shop.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, there were so many debauchery stories there.
But the best one I got is I was getting this tattooed and I was stationed at Fort Hood, and I wasn't nearly as tattooed up as I am now. And I walk in, tell the guy what I want and everything like that. And he comes over, he's like, hey man, I'm going to go outside and smoke. Have I told you this story before? Mm-mm. He goes, I'm going to go outside and smoke. Your tattoo will thank me. And I was like, oh, all right, cool, man, do your thing. And so I'm sitting there. I'm in the military. I'm sitting there thinking for sure he's going to, hit a blunt or smoke a bowl or something like that. And he comes back into the door and I see his jaw going like that.
Oof.
And I wasn't as educated in the drug field yet. I didn't know much about meth or anything like that. But turned out he went and rolled a bowl of meth.
Ooh.
And came in. And if you want to talk about a heavy hand.
I bet.
Like.
You can tell.
Nothing
We don't
here,
think that is.
nothing here should hurt. And I sat there the whole time like, oh my God, it was just wow, 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 like that. It was one of the longest, felt like the longest tattoos I ever gotten. It was probably only an hour or two, but
Oof.
it was rough. And then in the middle of getting the tattoo, somebody pulled up to the shop in a taxi with his girlfriend, and they got out of the car and he started beating his girlfriend's ass right in the parking lot. So this tattoo shop was full of gangsters.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing emptied out and went after this guy. It was quite the experience on a Saturday afternoon to get a tattoo.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. So you finally got sober, and when I met you, you were all in on and active in the recovery community in Austin. You were in so many meetings. I know you were chairing meetings. You were involved in a lot of the, what's the proper terminology called?
Fellowship.
But you were like, you held positions everywhere. It seemed like.
Yeah, I was on, I guess, their steering committees. I was on steering committees to 2 meetings. I was involved with the Heroin Anonymous District of Central Texas. I was involved with like a bunch of, I had so many sponsees and a sponsor. I was doing the most.
Right.
Service junkie.
Right. And so for how long did you go with all that?
So for my first year in the program, 2016 to 2017, I just went to 1 meeting a week, and I was just on that service commitment. I also smoked weed a couple times in that year, and when I changed my date, I decided to stop smoking weed. I got a desired chip. I claimed my honest time away from all mind-altering substances, and I picked up another meeting and all the service commitments involved with that. And that, it was probably, I think it was like 2019 when I was like, I'm going to die if I keep doing all this stuff. It was, yeah.
So it had just become too much, right?
It was exhausting. I was, right before I stepped away from meetings, it was 2019, it was on Halloween. We had decided to put on like a fundraiser, and the committee that I was a part of, the events committee that I was chair of, I was like, okay, let's do a skit and we'll make it really funny and we'll talk about all the like stereotypes in recovery and blah, blah, blah. And so we were meeting like twice a week, every week for like 3 weeks leading up to it, plus my regular meetings. And there was so much going on that I wasn't even able to go to the meetings. I would like work so late that I would just run from work to the like group conscience afterwards. I wasn't even like participating in the program that I was like helping like keep stable as whatever. And I woke up one day and I was like, I don't know why I'm bothering to live anymore. And my roommate came home from work. She worked overnight. So I'm sitting on the couch like looking drab, and she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't understand why I'm even bothering to live. And she's sat down and we talked, and she's like, I think you need to step away from some of this stuff. So it must have been, a few months before COVID when I finally actually stepped away, maybe November. And at first I stepped away from service commitments. So it was like, I cannot do these things anymore with group conscience and this and that. And I've received a lot of like the guilt from the community that like I had been processing for a while with my sponsor and my friends and people I know who are sober and in the community but not going to meetings about, am I going to die? I had this feeling like I'm going to die if I don't do this thing the way that I've been told to do this thing.
Everybody else thinks you should do it.
Yeah, the way that, the right way, right? The one true way. And I thought for sure I was going to die, and I had to like work through a lot of fear and process that. And I finally got through that, stepped down from my service commitments, and like some people that I really respected in all of the groups that I went to were like, this is how it starts.
Right.
And put that fear back on me. So I decided to stop doing meetings and stepping away from all that. I got a lot more time, but I stayed committed to the Heroin Anonymous community, and I was still involved with that and still work with my sponsor and have sponsees. But like going to the actual meetings hasn't been something that I've like prioritized in a long time. and it's there if I need it.
Right.
And yeah.
You and I met weeks ago, and we sat down for lunch, and we were talking about the podcast, and this came up, and I appreciated everything you said, because I'm in a very similar place. And, you know, I work within the recovery community. I'm plugged in with these people every single day. And, you know, we have friends that, you know, they won't hesitate to give you a little shit if you don't show up to a meeting or this and that. And, you know, I know they're talking shit, which that doesn't bother me, but this idea, you know, I tell everybody when I first sat down in the rooms and recovery and stuff like that, I looked around and I was like, this is it? I got to do this shit for fucking ever? This is the rest of my life? I'm not saying that the AA program, that is hope right there, absolutely. But that me sitting in that meeting and thinking about this message of this is never over, I'm never recovered, I got to do this forever, it was like, why am I even doing this then if I got to do this shit forever? And, you know, I didn't know then what I know now, but I've reached a point in my life and my recovery, like everything is solid. Everything is on the up in all areas in life. And I felt confident. I know what I do every day for work. I know I never miss a chance to help somebody out. You know, even sitting here today with this podcast, the whole reason we do it is to help people, to get stories out there and stuff like that. So I know in my heart and my soul that I'm doing everything I need to do in my life to continue on the path. It just sucks that some people are so close-minded that if you for 1 second step away from this room or anything like that, you know, that you're doomed. And there is people where that's the case, but it's on you, the individual, at the end of the day to know, am I ready to step, you know, I don't want to say step away, but am I ready to start doing some therapy? Am I ready to start hitting the gym? Am I ready to start doing this, and this, and adding these things in your life? Because at the end of the day, like, the way I look at it is like we come, you know, we get sober, and then it's like we start going to meetings, and that to me is like sitting on the porch, right? When is the right time for us to get off the porch and actually get out there into the world and do stuff? And that's, I feel like those people that are, you're 5-10 years sober and you still need to be at a meeting every day. Like, if that's what you want to do, awesome. I'm all for it if it helps you. But that's a foundation. You know, there's nothing that says that this needs to be your end all be all every single day from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. You know, I know you understand what I'm saying. Hopefully everybody at home understands what I'm saying too.
Yeah. Well, like, I feel like it was super important to go to meetings as much as I did and get connected to the community as much as I was. Like, I found my forever people. Like, I found Nina, who we mentioned earlier. She's the first friend that I made when I was going to meetings. And, like, this whole community of people that, like, are like ride or die people that like I can call when the shit hits the fan. Last night I was telling you, you're like, are you nervous about today? And I was like, last night I had like a dream that I was homeless, but I was like, I'm still gonna do this podcast. And the last time I was homeless, it was like right around the time that I changed my sober date. I had a relationship and it was possessive and insecure, and he thought I was sleeping with a client. We got into a big fight. He kicked me out, and I was homeless. I was homeless for 3 weeks, and I stayed with one of the friends that I made from the meetings that I went to. Like, I didn't know anybody that didn't drink or do drugs.
Right.
And going to those meetings regularly, I got to know a whole lot of people who didn't drink or do drugs.
Right.
And I don't think I would have been able to do this if it weren't for having that foundation. And if I were to lose all of those people and lose contact with those people or need to make new friends, like, that is the place. Like, those meetings are always there for me to connect with community and meet people who are like-minded and who have the same experience with substance as I do, and, you know, the same altruistic and, like, you know, just helpful mindset.
Right.
People that are service-minded. And selfless, and that community is always there. I don't think I could have done this if it weren't for going to those meetings, but I didn't think that I needed to be stuck in those meetings because I have a lot of other stuff in life.
Responsibilities
and just like a very full life. And I wouldn't have that if it weren't for getting sober. And I'll never let go of the people and the connections that I made from going to the meetings as long as I did.
Right. No, I agree. Same. And I get the reason me saying that, I hope it's not coming across as me trashing the program or anything, because it's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is there is hope. Like, you do reach a point in your life where it's like, I always have this. This is always in my back pocket. I know where meetings are when I need to get to them. But more importantly, the one thing I got was the community. And I'm forever plugged in with them. That's family to me. And that's what I have in my life right now. You know what I mean? I don't need to go show up somewhere at a meeting just to be around them, talk to them, see them and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They're in my everyday life.
Yeah, exactly. There's, small meetings everywhere that I go at all times.
So I can remember years back, I happened to be on Instagram, and Instagram told on you, and I messaged you about it, and I noticed that you were following, you were doing something that had to do with tying people up, and I'm like, oh, she's into some freaky shit. What is she doing?
That was funny that you found me. You were like, is this you?
And then I messaged you about it. And so for a couple of years now, we hadn't really crossed paths, but then when we connected over lunch and we're talking about the podcast, we brought it up. And I think it's amazing because so many people come on here and they talk about they found therapy, or I have I'm talking about running in the gym and stuff like that. And you came out of left field with some other therapeutic shit that I didn't even know was like that. My limited knowledge of it, I thought it was some way to release sexual tension or something like that. But then you kind of took me down that path and told me all about it. You want to talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so some people call it Shibari, but that's like a Japanese specific type of terminology for it. Just rope bondage applies. Most notably, it is associated with porn. So you'll see it sometimes on porn sites and people are tied up in rope and like getting railed, and it's not at all what the community is like and what the world that I've found is like. Most of my experience with rope did not involve sex until my most recent partner. Rope is a really interesting somatic experience to connect with one's body and interact with things that otherwise could cause trauma or have caused trauma, and reclaim those things, right? Whether it's power exchange, giving someone power or relinquishing power, or if it's pain, or if it's fear or self-esteem or body image, or understanding there's so much healing in it. And I was always curious about it. Interesting. When I first went to a rope class, I was expecting to be tied, and then I moved to the rope, and my brain was oh, all of this makes sense. I know how to do this already. My hands know what they're doing, so I tie people mostly. Shortly after that, I made amends to my ex-husband, who there's always going to be tension and love with him, and we made amends, and then it was a really bad choice, but we kissed, and then I had to go and process that, and it was okay, I can walk down this path and walk away from rope and kink and this whole thing that I really want to explore, or I can walk towards that and walk away from this piece of my past. And so it was very serendipitous timing that all of that happened at once, and I walked towards this thing that I wanted to explore. It was really new and interesting, instead of towards something that would have never allowed me to explore that community. And so I have been tying since 2019. That was one of the things that I started to have a little bit of my own time and life right before I stepped away from going to meetings. And it was oftentimes every night of the week now there's something to do, because I have this community that I'm exploring, and then I have all of my commitments to recovery, and that was one of the things that was wearing me down. It's I don't have time to breathe. I have learned a lot about communication. I've learned a lot about consent. I've learned a lot about a lot of things that apply in everyday life, from being an ethical person in the kink community, specifically in rope bondage.
Right. Yeah, my only experience was just stuff that I'd seen on the internet or whatever when I was younger, and then you showed me pictures, which were oddly enough wholesome pictures, because you could see, I started to understand when you showed me the pictures where you're trusting somebody to do this to you, you're trusting to have this done to you, and just the facial expressions, and then y'all embracing towards the end and stuff like that, where it was at first I would have bet you $1 trillion that there's no therapeutic value in this, but then to see you guys do that and hear you talk about it, it's oh shit, man, you can really get something out of that like that. So how often do you go do that? Do you just get the urge you need to go do it? Is it something you keep up every week?
I have a couple of people that I interact with regularly in that way. Some some of my like relationships are solely based around rope and like the people that I tie. I rarely ever get tied. It's not something that like I seek out or do. And again, it's like trauma based and like trust and not feeling safe in certain like predicaments with people. I haven't found someone to explore that with. So it's not as often as I'd like, but I don't have a lot of time. But it happens when it's meant to happen. And yeah, it's super healing. There's been lots of instances, like one of the people that I tie a lot of people that are like non-traditional body types, which is really an unfortunate saying in the like rope community. The people that get tied the most are the like little skinny girls. And so one of my friends is quite a large-bodied female person that I have been tying since I was learning. I tie a lot of men. One of my friends, he just didn't know that it was possible to like be handled in that way and to be moved, and he was really insecure about his size and stuff, and he was like, oh, don't, you just do whatever you can or whatever. And like just the fact that like I can lift him off the ground and I can shove him around was like empowering to him, because he's like, I didn't know that this could happen, and it created a release, and he cried, and it was beautiful. Like there's a lot of things that people believe about themselves as impossible that like walking through some sort of experience with someone who's safe like that can just prove is actually very possible.
Right. That is beautiful. I'm so glad you brought rope today. I know Jason was enthusiastic about trying out for you want to come over and give it a try? What if someone's looking to get into that, what do they do?
There's some local community spaces that you can just go and attend and learn like really basics. They'll explain negotiation and consent and like proper ways to interact with people. I definitely recommend like finding a community of people who get tied. Doesn't matter if you're doing the tying or if you're getting tied, like finding other people that do that, or that get tied. They have a lot of experience to impart. One of my friends got into it and didn't have that community when she first got into it, and like wound up in a situation that wasn't very good, and she didn't know until she started to make friends who were like other people who got tied, and she's like, oh, this is problematic, and there are things that I'm not consenting to, and I didn't even know. But yeah, there's local communities. FetLife is like a website that is a terrible site and terrible setup, but you can find events locally and anywhere in the world, and you just type in rope and go to events on FetLife, and you can find places and public events and learn some basics and meet some community, and that's always the best way to go about that.
Do they do the hanging where they put hooks in people?
I have a friend who does that, and his partner is one of the people in the rope community, so they are pretty adjacent, but there is a very different community. Very similar healing experience. Yeah, suspension. Very similar healing experience, very empowering. Things that you feel are impossible for your body that you learn are possible. Going through pain, trusting someone with your body. There's so much catharsis in the whole process of going through something that's really difficult and coming out the end okay.
Can you imagine the first person that decided that they were going to try suspension?
With hooks?
Oh, yeah.
It was a Native person.
Oh, really?
It's like a Native American. I don't know the original person, but it is a Native cultural tradition.
Really?
That they have done. They've done pullings with like person to person, suspensions. They still do. They'll attach and pull out pieces of flesh to like trees that they're that are at the dances and sun dances and stuff. They'll pull skulls from hooks in their body. So it starts from like Native cultures.
Gotcha.
It's been around a long time.
I'm just saying, but imagine the first person that had that concept, like, you try this. I'm going to stick these huge hooks and get hoisted in there. See the
first person probably was against their will.
Probably.
So hear me out. We're going to try this thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't say no, but that's, man, if so many people throughout my journey of, though everybody wants to judge sometimes. And so, people have said the running, you're just replacing one addiction for another, or the gym or this or that. But
Of course.
those things have taught me stuff that it's taught me discipline. You know what I mean? It's lit a fire under my ass. I've gotten so much from that stuff, you know what I mean? And so that's my biggest thing, and especially lately, is talking to people about passion. You know what I mean? Because I think that's one of the biggest things that I lacked. I was basically an adult that was really a child, and I had no passion in life. My only passion was getting fucked up to kill the pain. That I had no passion. And once I discovered a passion, you know what I mean? Like, it was transformative, because that finally was something that was more important to me than any drug or any alcohol or any outside feeling that I could get, because it was like a feeling I didn't know.
Yeah.
So if people find it in fucking the gym or suspension or tying up, like, if you're getting something from it, do it. As long as you're finding the good people to do it with.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, I remember asking you I would think, again, from an uneducated standpoint, that it would be like a bunch of weirdos and like perverts trying to come up and get tied. But you said that the community does a pretty good job of kind of policing itself, and it being people that are there for the right reasons and stuff.
Yeah, to some extent. I feel like anywhere there's power, there's always an abuse of power. So like, there's always people that have an unfair advantage, and that plays into a lot of like things that I've learned from doing this about like consent and agency, right? Agency is the idea that like, I can say to you, I need some water, right? I feel comfortable enough with you to ask for this thing that I need if I needed it right now, right? But if it was like some stranger that has never met you and is sitting here doing this podcast and they're feeling a little thirsty, but they're filming and I don't know, and let me not bother anybody, right? So they have less agency. And so people that are established in communities or in any sort of space that have more agency have a lot more opportunity to abuse it, even if they don't mean to.
Because they're aware that the person doesn't have the agency.
Or they might not be aware, right? Like, it happens all the time. So one thing that this ties into tattooing a lot. I tattoo a lot of naked bodies. And something before I started at the shop that I'm at now, Smoking Mirror Tattoo, I had a private room at True Blue. And so there was an inherent amount of privacy, but there were windows. And if I had someone who was nude, I would put up curtains and I would put up like a screen divider to cover the door. I always provided pasties. Like, I made sure that there was privacy. And when I moved to this new shop, it's an open floor plan. So I knew that like, I'm going to need to be able to provide privacy for these clients who are mostly naked. And I've realized I don't ask anybody like, hey, do you want screen room dividers? Do you want pasties? I just put them up and I give them pasties, and I started providing robes, and I just give them the most, because I'm expecting, if I ask, that they have the agency to say like, yes, please, I need this thing. Yeah. And if they don't know me and there's this power dynamic, right? This is my shop, my station. I'm going to hurt them. They're submitting in so many words. I'm expecting them to have the agency to tell me that they need something by me asking, so I don't ask anymore. Right. And stuff like that is an accidental abuse of power, when like an artist just like is like, cool, are you okay being naked? And like, they probably aren't, but right. They're not going to want to bother someone, because, it's like asking for a glass of water from someone that you're not comfortable with. It's just like, oh, don't worry about it, right? So that comes into play in the kink and rope community sometimes, because these people that have more agency and more power are getting consent, but it's not informed consent, and they're getting consent from people who don't have the agency to say no.
Right. I gotcha.
Soapbox.
So how long sober are you?
My original sober date was July 11th, 2016. I honor that date, even though I smoked weed a couple times. Like, that's when my life changed. As far as like going to meetings and collecting little medallions, August 7th, 2017. So 6 years, something like that.
So for everything that you've been through, have you had like your kind of redemption moment where you've been able to kind of take a look around and you're just like, holy shit, I made it. Life is different. Life is good. and I'm not saying that like I got this. That's not what I'm saying. But just where you took a look around and let it all sink in, and you're like, damn, like I am successful, like I am loved.
I suppose so. I wouldn't say it's just one moment. It's kind of been every day for most of my life. I just can look around and see how blessed I am and how lucky I've been. And I try not to think about it, because if I do think about it, I get emotional, and then there's fear of like losing what I have, and I can't think about it too much. I just have to like keep waking up and like going and doing the best that I can every day, every morning, and trying to stay grateful and be humble and be kind and do the best that I can do. And so far it's worked. I'm very blessed, and I'm comfortable, and my needs are met, and I've got great people in my life, a stable house, a stable job, and stable clients. And I try not to think too much about how much I have.
I hear what you're saying. I have moments like that, but I have these tremendous moments of gratitude now, because life is just so different now. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I was talking with somebody recently, and they were asking me about my goals. And I mean, I guess I have goals, but all I know is, when I got sober in 2017, I took my hands off and just started doing me. You know what I mean? Like I started doing what I love, discovered what I was passionate about, discovered the benefits of me turning my sights outward of myself and helping other people, and how life has changed. And the best way I could describe my life is just organic. Like everything that happens for me is organic. I don't try to make it happen. And so it's like weird, like when people ask me, do I have goals? Like, I guess, but it's just, I just keep doing me and good things happen. Mm-hmm. And I even said to my buddy yesterday, I'm like, have you ever had that time where like so much stuff is going good where you just look around and you're like, fuck, something's got to give pretty soon.
That's why I don't think about it.
Something's got to give.
Yeah.
I just started having that, you know what I mean? As we get closer to the podcast launching and a lot of the conversation we're having, it's like so many times for the past 7 years, I just look around and I'm like, how the fuck is this all happened? Like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's important for me to do, but it's not something that I dwell on. And then one thing about me, I'm like never happy. Mm-hmm. And so I just I'm like a dog chasing a car. I don't know what I'd do if I got a hold of it. Yeah. I just keep going.
Yeah.
Would you say you have goals as far as tattooing?
Yeah. So one of the things that led me to step away from True Blue is I was in this bubble. I worked at that shop for a decade. I was almost 10 years. If I had made it to August, working there August this year, it would have been a decade. And I was safe and provided for and secure and stagnant, right? I was very complacent, and I wasn't challenging myself as much as I could have been, and all growth was like self-propulsion. I want to learn this. I want to figure out how to do this. I didn't have people I was working with that were doing big back pieces and sleeves and going to seminars and traveling, and I didn't get to see that, and so I wasn't doing it. And as this is kind of, I guess like a sad reason, but like my two dogs, because I live alone except for my dogs, and my two dogs are getting older. One of them is 15, and he's like having like dementia problems and stuff. My other dog is like a Great Dane mutt, and she's 8, which is old for a Great Dane. Mm-hmm. I don't want to like, when my dogs are gone, just get another dog so I'm not home alone. I want to be able to like go and travel and do all the things that like having this anchor that keeps me home has kept me from doing. And as a tattoo artist, I can travel and work anywhere. I can make a living I could get a visa and work overseas, but I can't do that if I have, pets at home. So I'm trying to walk through all of my like insecurity and fear working with really good artists. So I'm at a shop right now where everybody intimidates me every day. And I feel like, honestly, there are times where I'm like, am I good enough to work here? I've been there long enough now where I feel a lot more like stable, but like still every day I'm like, damn, look at this work these people are doing. Like, no way I'm good enough to work here, but I do work there. And obviously I am good enough, or they wouldn't have let me work there. But that's sort of like imposter syndrome, and that is something that like I want to work through.
I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, that like, who am I to be doing this thing? Because if I have imposter syndrome, if I don't work with artists that intimidate me, if I don't work in new and uncomfortable situations, I'm never going to be able to travel and work.
Right.
So
And you're not growing.
Exactly. So first thing was go to a new shop, which I have done. I just came back from Colorado and I talked to 2 different shops out there to figure out a guest spot. So I'm going to go to Colorado. I have a client in Colorado. So I'm going to go up to Colorado and tattoo in a city I've never worked in, at a shop I've never worked at, with people I've never worked with, which is like step 2 in being able to like not be terrified to travel. And so hopefully like by the time I have an empty nest, because I won't have dogs forever, unfortunately. I wish they lived as long as I do.
Right.
I can just go and explore the world and go to places that I never would have imagined. I've never even left the country. I don't even have a passport.
Really?
So, like, the only thing holding me back is myself. So that's, I'd say, a goal in my career is to get outside of that imposter syndrome and experience things.
You are meant to be around the world.
Maybe.
You're bigger than Austin.
Maybe. We'll see.
I promise.
I hope so.
Who would you say your inspirations are in life? Maybe some growing up, some now.
Inspirations. It's a good question. So, like, I don't know if there's like any one person that I would say is like all of the things about this person inspire me, but like little things here and there have like shown me that like what I dream is possible. When I was small, my dad, he works with his hands. He's a carpenter. He's retired now, but like knowing that like you can survive and make a life and a living outside of like corporate jobs and sales and all of the things that you know, go to college for, like that was a super inspirational thing that led me to be a tradesperson in the end. There's an artist that I've followed since I was a baby tattooer, Jeff Gogwe, and he was self-taught in a little town in Oregon, I think Grants Pass, Oregon, which used to be like nowhere land, biker town. He like learned at a biker shop, tattooed out of a garage for a little while, like really is so self-taught because nobody else would teach him, and he forged a way that like his books are closed indefinitely. I talked to him at the convention in Austin one year and I was like, how does someone get tattooed by you? And he's like, honestly, I don't know how to answer that. Like, if you're meant to, you will. He does full body suits. He travels. I can't even imagine how expensive it is to get tattooed by him. And he's a self-made artist. There's inspiration in everyone that I meet too. I'd say that there's something about everyone that I'm like, that I want to be that. Right. And fuck, sometimes like, wow, I don't want to be that. Let me not be that way. So I don't know if there's any one or two like ideal people that I can say are inspiration.
That was good though. You gave me one family member and then one person out in the world. Normally everybody gives me the super cliche, my mom and my dad or whatever like that. Which, you know, of course, like my stepdad is hands down number one, you know, inspiration in my life. Taught me how to be a man, everything like that. But I love hearing who out in the world people see, because you can find, like you're saying, find little things in different people, and people you wouldn't even expect have nothing to do with your world or anything like that. But you see somebody's bravery or the way they, you know what I mean, carry themselves or the things they talk about and stuff like that, where it's like, damn, that's dope.
You know, this is probably eventually get heard by this person and we'll both cry about it. One of the people that I could say is an inspiration is someone that I met. I'm going to cry now. It's time. I'm a crybaby. I met her at the first time I ever told my story when I first got sober. She was in a treatment center that I told my story at. I wasn't even like honest sober. I had smoked weed a couple times in that year, but I told my story at this place. They give you an hour. I told my story in fucking 20 minutes. I was so nervous. And I was like, well, that was fast. So does anybody want to share? And like crickets in the room, right? And this girl sitting on the floor, just like hand resting in face, resting bitch face. And I was like, you look happy to be here. Why don't you share? And she's like, oh, this is just my face. But actually, like, my story resonated enough with her that, like, we've kept in touch throughout the years. And she had a very different experience with drugs and alcohol than I did, but identified enough with my story from someone who's not been in treatment, and not been. I've not overdosed. I didn't use IVs when I was using heroin, which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the differences in our story, but she identified enough with my story that like we kept in touch. And when she got out of treatment, eventually she got an apprenticeship and started to learn to tattoo.
Oh, really?
And I watched her go through. She had 2 apprenticeships, and then she started tattooing, and I went and got tattooed when my friend that like was the person who helped me get sober with the All Good Junkies Go to Heaven. When she passed away, she died from cancer in 2018. I got a memorial tattoo from my friend. Her name's Megan, who I witnessed from the bottom go through an apprenticeship, start tattooing. She did my memorial for JL. Later, we traded tattoos, and we both won awards for the tattoos we did on each other. She was still an apprentice. Really? She's the reason why I'm at the shop that I'm at now, actually. She works there, and she was like, and I was like thinking of leaving True Blue, and I wanted to talk to someone who had worked at another shop in Austin. I'm so isolated from tattooers. And I went and had brunch, and she brought me next door to the shop she worked at. Was like, that could be your station. She's an inspiration. Crying.
Good answer.
Yeah, I watched her go from real low to she's married, bought a house, she's engaged. She's planning her wedding. She's having like a traditional fucking white dress wedding. She's bought a house. She's got a good partner, stable relationship. She makes more money than I do.
Good.
And she inspires the shit out of me every day.
Megan, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Megan.
Megan Manassi. She's a badass.
That's beautiful. Do you have... Let me try to bring your spirits up a little bit.
Oh, my spirits are up. I just cry. These are happy tears, guys.
Do you have a fight song?
A fight song.
Like if you had to walk out tonight and you're fighting for the women's UFC championship, what song gets you jacked up? You're ready to go.
I feel like that would probably change most of the time, depending on the day.
Mine changes daily, so.
Yeah. What would it be right now? I don't know. I told you when I get asked questions, I just can't think of answers sometimes. This is one of those moments.
Do you have a song that resonates for your life? Like some really important songs to you that are deeper than just music?
I feel like there's a lot of stuff that is important to me, like Tool, my first tattoo from the shop that started my apprenticeship. They have a lot of songs that I feel like are really about spiritual awakening and stuff. And one of the tattoos that I got, or the tattoo I got, is 46 and 2. He talks about expanding your consciousness to an extent of everyone has 46 chromosomes, and there's a theory that people with one extra chromosome is Down syndrome. So your chromosomes make a huge difference in your body. And there's a theory that people who have 46 and 2, they have 2 extra chromosomes, they're spiritually awakened. They are connected to a higher power. And I feel like some of Tool's songs about awakening and awareness and connection and all of that, those are always super important to me. Recently, I started listening to a musician called Ren. He's somewhere in the UK, and it's a rap sort of singer guy. And
you immediately thought MC Ren, right? You didn't think?
I don't know who that is. Nope, Ariane Ren. Yeah, he is. He writes a lot about mental health, mental illness, chronic illness, physical. I think he's probably got Lyme disease, because he's his one of his lyrics is sick boy bit by a tick boy, and so that's how you get Lyme disease. So and I have some chronic pain problems and stuff. So stuff like that, I feel has been really good to listen to lately.
I had a buddy of mine, Dan, on, who has Lyme disease, and he talked about the struggle with that and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When I undiagnosed for years, doctors were making him think he was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff, wild. And I grew up north, so like, you know, there's ticks
There's
up
a lot
there.
of people. Yeah.
Lyme disease, and I just never thought anything of it. But then once I heard that, I was holy shit, dude. That's wild.
Yeah.
So Ren's got some bangers. I need to check them out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to him the whole drive down here too. Like some of his stuff is like, and he's just fire. He's a really good rapper, but like, a lot of his stuff is about like some deep shit. Some of it's sad, some of it's about suicide. He's got this one song where he like the music video makes me cry, and everyone I've shown it to has also cried. It's like him in a hospital gown sitting on one chair with a guitar, and he's like having this discussion with himself, and the guitar beat changes and his voice changes, whether it's like him or his like subconscious, and it's really emotional. It's very about imposter syndrome and all that. Like he's fucking doing some shit.
I want to check him out.
Yeah.
Have you heard of NF?
No.
So he's like a little white rapper, but he can rap his ass off. And I think I could be wrong, but his genre, I guess, is technically like religious rap, but it's not like overly like you could listen to it and never know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'd have to pick up on things to understand that. But I went to he raps a lot about mental health stuff and all that, and so he had just put out an album, and I went to go see him in Austin. And I remember I called a couple buddies and was like, hey, do you want to go see NF? And my one buddy was like, have fun with all the teeny boppers there. And I was like, nah, dude, NF could rap his ass off. It's not going to be like all teenagers there. We show up to Stubbs, all teeny boppers.
Oh, shit.
And so at first I'm like, oh, man, this dude puts on one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen of any concert. And the two cool things were we were hands down the biggest people there. So everybody stayed away from us. So everybody else is all packed in like this. And we just had all kinds of room for activities. Nobody wanted to come near us. And then the one aspect I never thought of, it's all teenagers, so none of them can drink.
Oh.
And so everybody was like on good behavior. There was no fights or anything. If I could just get them to stop raising all their fucking phones to get in the way of me seeing. But it was a good experience. But check out NF if you like that. You might like them.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
So I got a couple words I just want to throw out to you. And I just want you to come up with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, we'll see if I can do this. Yeah. We'll see.
All right. Tattoos.
Humans.
Recovery.
Love.
Miami.
Family. That's where my family's at.
Are they all still down there? You go back and visit?
Not often. Sometimes. It's just mom and dad, so.
Gotcha. God.
Hope.
United States of America.
Fear.
Fear? Can you elaborate a little bit?
I feel like a lot of what's happening between people in the country is all fear-based. People are afraid of what they don't understand. They're afraid of change. They're afraid of equality. They're afraid of everything. All of the problems always, really, in the whole world with anything ever, always boil down to fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of not getting what you think you deserve, or losing something that you think should be yours. Fear.
In that vein with what you're saying, do you find a difference between like your personal interactions and conversations on a daily basis with people as opposed to social media?
So I don't tend to interact with people on social media. Most of social media for me, thankfully, is like work. Yeah. So I avoid like intense conversations or really like engaging in conversation on social media. But all of the things that like I believe and I discuss and I am an advocate for in my personal life with clients and with friends, and I also share all that stuff on my story on Instagram. So there's definitely not like a place where anything is off limits. I'll talk about anything with anyone anytime.
Right. And you're open to people with differences in opinions and stuff like that?
Yeah. I feel like there's points and times where like someone's politics, like I can discuss like concept and principle and ideology and ideas and all of that, but like I don't want to have conversations about political like who someone wants to vote for president, because like some of that can be violence depending on who it is and like what they're about, you know? And so Like, I'm down to discuss policy and debate and have conversation with people who are educated on topics, especially things that I don't know at any time. But I feel like I try to keep like just like who someone's going to vote for like off the table, because if it's in the world that we live in today, some of the people that are in political situations advocate for violence and erasure of people that like I'm an ally to or a community that I'm a part of. So there's a limit.
Right. Yeah, they all suck.
But like I can interact with a person that has different values and not discuss that.
Right.
I'm not Christian, but I can fucking get down on some God conversation with a Christian person.
Right.
But it's the second that it turns to hatred that it's off limits.
Right. I get that. That's what I miss, is being able, like, I don't take anything personal. Like, I'm sure you and I have differences of opinion on many things, you know what I mean? But you and I can still sit down, have an intelligent conversation, keep our emotions set aside. And it's just people, like, who am I to tell anybody what they should think or how they should feel, or if they feel differently than me on something that they're wrong? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And that's what makes this country great, is the fact that we are free to do these things and stuff like that. And just social media, man, like, unfortunately, it's just necessary evil for business and all these things. And I enjoy flipping through it, but just the picture that's being painted, I don't feel is as accurate as real everyday life.
Right. I feel like social media too, like I've watched this one content creator like be reshared over the years, and I realized the other day like how different it is. It's this lady who has this like Aussie dog or whatever, Australian Shepherd, that is incredibly well trained and very smart. And there's a lot of videos of them doing like dog yoga on the internet and stuff. And like there's a video of this dog painting a picture, and I've seen it come across my feed 100 times. And everyone's always like, "Oh my God, this is so cute." That's Secret. Secret recently passed away, the dog. And then it just came up like 2 days ago, and all the comments are like, "This is fake. This isn't real. The paintbrush is on a string. The owner's controlling the brush. The dog's not really. It's all like this. People just arguing, and like that's not real." And so like social media and the way that people communicate and the way that people interact and what people believe and trust of each other is completely different.
Right. I made one of the biggest things I've done probably in the past year is making an honest effort to disconnect from my phone in the evenings. Mm-hmm. Like once it hits 5:30 and I miss calls, people get upset with me and stuff like that. But it's something I have to do for my own sanity and relationship and mental health, to just get the fuck away from that thing. Because it pains me every time I see somebody like this sitting there and just their face all glowing, and it's just like, man, there's this whole world out here, and it's like I just discovered it because I've gotten sober and like I'm out here doing stuff. So I hope it's something some other people can do too eventually. So the one way we like to wrap up the podcast, it's called the I Am Redemption podcast, and that goes for everybody. Anybody who's been through adversity and come out on the other side, they've found their redemption. And so if you're willing, I would ask that you could look in your camera and maybe throw out some I am statements to let people know who you are.
Well, I am Tank Girl. I am a human. I am probably going to cry. I am love and patience and tolerance. I am sometimes afraid. And I am still redemption.
Let's go. That was perfect. That was perfect. I love it. Real quick, I should have touched on this earlier. How did the nickname Tank Girl come about?
It is, I worked in Fort Lauderdale at the shop that I was at when I met my ex-husband, and I worked with this lady who had just moved from Georgia, and she was a weirdo. And we were talking about comic books, and I don't read a lot of comic books, but I had seen Tank Girl, I had seen Hellraiser, and she's like, "Oh, did you know there's a Tank Girl movie?" And I was like, "No." And so I went and watched the movie at some point, and I came back to work, and this girl, like, I think she knew a lot more about me than I knew about myself. She was, like, sober-ish and had been through an opiate addiction when mine was coming up. She had been through an abusive marriage when I was in mine, and I think she saw a lot more of me than I saw. Anyway, I saw the movie, I came back to work, and I was like, I saw Tank Girl, and I watched the movie, it was pretty cool. And she goes, "You know what? You are Tank Girl." And she, like, took out her pencil and drew a sketch of me cause at the time I had a dread mohawk, and drew a picture of me with my dreads and my pointed ears as Tank Girl. And because she was new in town, everyone that she met, she was like introducing me as Tank Girl. And so when I moved here, after like all the shit I had been through and my marriage had become abusive and my opiate addiction had taken me out of an entire city, I decided to introduce myself as Tank Girl. And boy, that feels weird to be like, hi, my name's Tank Girl, when like I've never met someone. Like the first, I don't know, year, I was like, this is real weird. But everyone just calls me Tank, and that feels a lot easier to introduce myself as. But people are like, Tang? And I'm like, no, Tank, like tank top, like tank, like army, artillery, tank.
Right.
It's been an interesting experience.
It's perfect, and it fits you, so
Thank you.
kudos to her. What does Tank Girl and Hellraiser have anything to do with each other?
No, there's just the two comic books that I knew about.
Hellraiser was a comic book?
Yeah, Hellraiser was a comic book.
Really?
It is such a good comic book. I love the like drawing of the little Cenobites, the demon characters. In the comic book. There was a big fat guy, and he was a tattooer.
Is he? I didn't know.
Yeah, so he's covered in a bunch of tattoos. The fat guy, and he's got a tattoo machine. I was like, that guy's cool. It's a spirit animal, I think.
Unfortunately, those movies do not hold up.
No,
Because I was singing the praises of all these old horror movies my wife had never saw, and then we started going back and watching them, and I was just like,
yeah.
Hellraiser was a comic book. Was it like Image comic? It wasn't DC or Marvel, right?
No, it's the same line of comics, I think, that did Watchmen.
It's DC.
No, it's like an offshoot of DC. It's not under the DC umbrella. I can't remember what it's called.
Trying to pull back my 8th grade comic book knowledge right now.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Clive Barker, I think, is the artist for
And I
Hellraiser.
definitely know Clive Barker. But thank you so much today for coming in. You are absolutely amazing. I couldn't wait for this episode and to finally get you in here. So I just thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep blessing this world with your badass art. And I don't know, we need to talk afterwards and see how I can slide in those closed books of yours.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anything you want to promote right now?
So my Instagram is at Tank Girls Great Adventure, just all one word, Tank Girls Great Adventure. And then my website is www.tankgirltattooing.com. My email is tankgirltattooing@gmail. But Tank Girls Great Adventure on Instagram is the easiest way to get me. You can follow my work, follow my apprentice's journey, see all the political things that I do post about, and send me a message on there and ask any questions you have.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Go follow. Love you. Thank you.
I love